Hi, I'm Carmel. Welcome to my YouTube channel.
Christmas is not just a season, but a feeling that brings warmth and magic into our lives. Today, join me and my kids on a festive journey as we transform our home into a wonderland. I'm also going to share a personal story of a miraculous Christmas that changed our lives forever. So, kids and I, we went to this beautiful shop in Adyar, and they had amazing collection of wreaths, Christmas trees, ornaments, you name it, and they had it, and exactly the kinds that I was looking for. So I took my time, checked out stuff. I wanted a few garlands, few wreaths, a few stuff here and there. And after our shopping, kids, of course, would always want something to end their day. And so we went to this nice place nearby. We are back home. Well, the real magic begins. Unpacking our treasures and adorning the tree with memories and love. Each ornament holds a story, much like the Christmas of 1993, that remains etched in my heart. Growing up in Bhopal, our winters were super cold. That Christmas morning, as my father was trying to light the burner, a matchstick broke and a burning piece hit his eye. He closed his eye instinctively, because of the reflex. But the burning piece, it injured his retina. His screams filled the air as he splashed water on his eye. My mother, holding my then 1-year-old brother, stood there terrified. I was just about 8 years old, but I knew I had to get help. I ran about a kilometer or two to the auto rickshaw stand, and a kind gentleman brought me back home and then took my parents to the doctor they wanted to meet. After looking at my father's eye, the doctor was grim and sort of warned us of the worst. It was a very difficult morning, afternoon. That Christmas was very different from what I had experienced in the past. We had our cousins, our relatives who were coming, visiting. I mean, that used to happen as a very joyous moment for all of the past years. But this time it was more to visit my father to see how things were. My father was very disturbed. To tell you a little about my father, he's a self-made man, very artistic, extremely creative, sings beautifully. He's a very famous singer back in Bhopal. He's an industrialist, runs his own factories. And for him to now realize that days ahead may not be as they used to be, and he may live dependent going forward, was a fact very, very difficult to digest. In the particular line of work that he was in, which was, our factory was an ancillary unit of BHL, so they would work on a lot of shafts and motors, and so the work had to be very, very precise. And he's a man, he would look at something and tell you in millimeters how much was it off. Now with this injured retina, and like I said, he was an artist, he would paint, he can do so many things, but to think that suddenly he's going to lose his eyesight, I think it was taking a huge toll on him. That particular night, it was a quiet evening. I'd never seen my father sort of shed a tear. But that night he was very disturbed. When our life was at a standstill, my mother, who was a homemaker with 2 kids, one just about 7 or 8, the other about 1, and my dad being the only earning member in the family, things were looking difficult. But then, suddenly, it changed. It all changed. My father, while sleeping, said, "There's somebody in the room. There's a lady in the room. She has a white shawl on her head. There's somebody in the room. Somebody's touching my eye." And he kept saying it. And as he was saying it, and we were shocked, we were looking around, the room had no light because we were sleeping. My mother tried to switch on the light. She said, "There's nobody here." And my father's eye were there were full bandages, and it was like tightly packed with cotton, and it was covered so that his injured eye isn't getting should get the amount of rest that it should get, and should not be seeing anything. There should be no harsh lights until the next step of whatever the operation or whatever they would decide. So it was all packed up. So how was he seeing? What was he seeing is what we were all wondering. And when my mother was trying to touch him, he started shaking. And he said, "There's somebody who's touching my eye. Somebody's rubbing my eyes." And my mother said, "Don't worry, there's nobody here. You may be just, seeing a dream. Please go back to sleep. It's all okay." I could see my dad physically shaking on the bed, trembling. And a while later, we asked, "Are you okay? And is there any pain?" And he said, "No, there's no pain." It all didn't make any sense, but we slept the night, and somehow the night passed. In the morning, my parents went for the follow-up again. And this renowned doctor and his son, who was an eye specialist himself, recently returned from the US. He had come to visit his father, actually, his son. So this doctor, when he was examining my father, he suddenly took a step back and said, "This is a miracle. I've never seen anything like this. It cannot happen." And my mother asked him, "What happened? Is it all okay? I have things. What has happened?" And he said that his retina is absolutely fine. It's intact. There's no problem. He, in fact, before telling this to my mother, called his son, who had just come to visit his family. But he said, "Come, just look at, this is the case I was talking about yesterday of the burnt retina." And his son too said, it is unbelievable. My mother, who was crying a day before because she had no hopes, was crying again and howling in this hospital because she was proclaiming the miracle of the God. She was a woman with all hopes for life again. I say that this particular incident changed our lives forever because imagine, for a girl who's just about 7 or 8, to have had an experience of this sort cements an immense belief system. I often tell my son, and I read this somewhere, and I quote this quite often to him, that while science says, "Show me and I'll believe you," faith says, "Believe me and I'll show you." It is belief. It's all our faith. That day, I realized what it is to have an undying, unwavering, a wholehearted belief in the power of the God. Since that day, that particular Christmas day has always remained etched in my heart. And every year, the day of Christmas, we now celebrate it with more joy and more happiness.